Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm going to be talking about Chapter 12 of Parah Adumah by Maimonides. When the water of the ashes of the red heifer was sprinkled on a person who became impure due to contact with a human corpse, if even the slightest amount of the water touches any portion of the body of the impure person, the sprinkling is effective. This applies even if the sprinkling fell on the tips of his fingers or on the tips of his lips. If, however, the water touches his tongue, it is of no consequence, even though the tongue is considered as a revealed organ with regard to contracting ritual impurity. As we explained, it is not considered as one of the revealed organs with regard to sprinkling and immersion. Similarly, when a keli contracted impurity with a corpse and the water was sprinkled on it, if even the slightest amount of the sprinkling water touches the body of the keli, the sprinkling is effective. When one intended to sprinkle on two kalim or two people at the same time, and one sprinkled water on one of them, and then it dripped from the first to the second remains impure until water falls upon him from the sprinkling and not from the concentration of water in another place. If one sprinkled on two kalim and one was in doubt whether he sprinkled on both at once or the water dripped from one to the other, the sprinkling is invalid. When a needle was placed on a shard and one intended to sprinkle water on it, but a doubt arose whether he sprinkled on the needle or the water dripped on it from the shard, the sprinkling is invalid. The following laws apply when there is a kalim that have several parts which are connected to each other with nails. For example, a scissor that comes apart the blade of a plane or the like. At the time of work, they are considered as joined with regard to both impurity and sprinkling. When work is not being performed with them, neither is considered as joined to the other. What is meant by saying that they are considered as joined with regard to both impurity and sprinkling? If one of the parts contracts impurity at the time work is being performed, the second also contracts impurity. Conversely, if water was sprinkled on one while work was being performed with them, the sprinkling is also effective with regard to the other, and it is as if they were a single entity. What is meant by saying that they are not considered as joined with regard to both impurity and sprinkling? If one contracts impurity while work is not being performed with it, the other does not contract impurity. And if both had contracted impurity and one sprinkled the water on them at the time when work was not being performed, the other does not become pure, even though they were joined together at that time. This is the scriptural law. According to the rabbinic law, however, it was decreed that they should be considered as joined with regard to impurity, even at a time when work was not being performed. This decree was instituted as a safeguard for the law applying when work was being performed. Whenever impurity touches one of them, the other also becomes impure. They also decreed They also decreed that they should not be considered as joined with regard to sprinkling, even at a time when work was being performed. This decree was instituted as a safeguard for the law applying when work was not being performed. Whenever one sprinkles the water on one of them, the other does not regain purity until the water is also sprinkled on the other. From this, it can be inferred that whenever it is mentioned that two entities are considered as joined with regard to impurity, but not with regard to sprinkling. This is merely a rabbinic decree following the pattern explained above. When two articles are joined together to the extent that they are considered as a single entity, for example, one sewn together two garments or two parchments, they are considered as joined for both impurity, sprinkling, because they are a single entity. A launderer's sewing and a garment that is sewn with a forbidden mixture of fabrics that are about to be separated are not considered as joined with regard to sprinkling, but are considered as joined with regard to impurity. Baskets joined as a carrier, a threshing utensil, the feet of a bed, drinking horns of travelers, and a chain of keys are considered as joined with regard to impurity, but are not considered as joined with regard to sprinkling. Instead, the water that is sprinkled must reach each individual basket, each individual key, each individual horn, and every beam of the bed that it is assembled. When a person joins 3 blankets of wool, or 6 of linen, or 3 sheets of 12 kerchiefs, they are considered as joined with regard both to impurity and sprinkling, any more than the above quantities are considered joined with regard to impurity, but are not considered as joined with regard to sprinkling. 1 cloak, 1 garment, and 1 club curran are considered as joined with regard to impurity and sprinkling, even if they are very long and very wide, no matter how large they are. What is a club curran? The garments are 2 garments are taken, cotton is placed between them as a lining, and then they are sewn together as one and worn as an outer garment for the winter. When the covering of a samovar is connected with chains, when one sprinkles the samovar, everything is purified. If one sprinkled on the cover, one did not purify the samovar, it is necessary to sprinkle on it directly. A bell and a clanger are considered as joined with regard both to the impurity and sprinkling. If one sprinkled on one of them, they both regain their impurity. They both regain their purity. A spindle on which flax is spun or ropes are made is composed of 3 parts. A spindle on which flax is spun or ropes are made is composed of 3 parts. A, the rod around which the thread is wound, it is called cush, a cush. B, the copper or iron hook at the top of the rod with which one spins and makes thread is called a sinora. Sitnora. The ball that is in the center of the rod is called a pica. When the spindle on which ropes are wound becomes impure, one should not sprinkle on the pica or the cush, only on the zinora. After the fact, if one sprinkled on one of these, everything is purified. If a spindle is used for flax, one may sprinkle on any of the 3 as an initial preference, for the 3 are joined together. A piece of leather used to cover a cradle that is connected by buttons is considered as joined with regard both to impurity and sprinkling. The wooden frame placed on top of a bed is not considered as joined neither with regard to impurity or with regard to sprinkling. All the hollow handles of a kiln, for example, a knife handle and the like, that is the handle that has an opening and the iron shafts enter it, are considered as joined with regard both to impurity and sprinkling. All extruded handles, for example, the handle of a javelin in which a portion of the wood is inserted into the iron shaft, are not considered as joined with regard to sprinkling. That concludes chapter 12 of Parah Adumah. Please subscribe to all my channels. I have 3 channels on YouTube. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. All the links are in the description of this video and all my videos. That way you get the notifications of my publications. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.